more often.
Jordan's king flies to meet with President Bush carrying a message from Saddam Hussein. The president says Jordan's port of Aqaba must be closed to Iraq, and 50,000 U.S. reservists may be called up if the crisis continues. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting tonight from Amman, Jordan. Good evening. A flicker of hope this evening here in the Middle East. Iraq's Saddam Hussein has met with Jordan's king, and CBS News is told Saddam gave the king what Jordanian sources say are direct and important messages for President Bush. After his meetings with Saddam in Baghdad, Jordan's king came back briefly here to Amman, then left immediately for the United States, where he is now scheduled to meet President Bush in Maine on Thursday. The king is reported to be carrying a letter from the Iraqi president. Jordanian sources say Saddam seeks to reassure President Bush that he wants peace, not war, that he is not going to invade Saudi Arabia, and that he is prepared to cooperate with the United States throughout the Persian Gulf, including future cooperation even about oil prices. Middle East sources in and out of Jordan report that the Iraqi president may be proposing an international conference to discuss Iraqi withdrawal from Kuwait on condition that President Bush promises not to bring in any more U.S. forces and does not intensify the situation. That could not be immediately confirmed. President Bush broke away from his main vacation today to meet with aides in Washington and hold a nationally broadcast news conference. Mr. Bush said that he is anxious to talk with Jordan's King Hussein, and he defended what he called the U.S. interdiction, what people in this part of the world call the blockade, of shipping bound for Iraq. White House correspondent Wyatt Andrews has more.
The president said he knows of no peace proposal from Saddam Hussein, has no immediate hope for a diplomatic solution to the Gulf crisis, and plans to squeeze Baghdad even tighter. He rejected criticism that his naval blockade might be illegal.
Well, we're doing it the way our attorneys and others around the world recommend, and I think we're doing it properly, and I hope we're doing it to the degree that all ships will turn back if they are in contravention of the UN action.
The president seemed to mildly threaten the man en route to see him, King Hussein of Jordan, disappointed that Jordan is allowing food shipments to reach Iraq despite global sanctions. Mr. Bush hinted that U.S. aid to Jordan might be reconsidered.
We've always been a friend of Jordan. We've helped them in the past. We'd help them in the future if they fulfill their obligations here.
And if the flow of food doesn't stop, the president said he will move to shut down the port of Aqaba where it's loaded.
If it's a hole through which commerce flows in an otherwise tight net, I would certainly think that Aqaba should be closed to Iraqi commerce.
Mr. Bush interrupted his August vacation today, not just to get tough with Iraq, but to launch a full-scale political attack on congressional Democrats. Perhaps in the belief that Congress won't fire back in the midst of crisis, the president, with a vengeance, threw out his promise not to make the budget a partisan issue.
I'm going to put the focus where it belongs and where the American people year after year know it belongs, and that is on the party that controls the United States Congress. We had a proposal. People know what was in it. We had an original proposal with detail. They've had none. And the deal was they were to have a proposal. Now let's come forward with it and set aside politics, because it's getting tough now.
Senate Majority Leader George Mitchell did fire back tonight, charging it's the president who's abdicating his responsibilities over the budget. Still, this new fight at home is likely to remain a sideshow to the crisis in the Gulf. The president goes to the Pentagon for Gulf-related briefings tomorrow and will meet Jordan's King Hussein back in Kennebunkport on Thursday. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, the White House.
Iraq's invasion of Kuwait has left Jordan's King Hussein in a tough spot with little room for maneuver. The king is a friend of Saddam Hussein and a longtime supporter and ally. However, he has refused to recognize the puppet government of the Iraqis in Kuwait. Now, he also has refused to enforce the UN sanctions against Iraq that could wreck Jordan's economy. Alan Pizzi tells us about the king in a corner.
This Red Sea port is King Hussein's dilemma. It is a vital part of Jordan's economy, which is heavily dependent on Iraq, and Aqaba is Iraq's main trade outlet. Half of the 20 million tons of cargo handled here each year are Iraqi. It's the hole in the sanctions net being cast around Iraq.